Um, I'm Lee, for anyone who doesn't know. What am I doing here? Sorry.
Later.
Okay. Originally from Australia, and I've been in the Lord for 39 years, and that's just been an amazing walk. Oh gosh, there's heaps and heaps I could say, but there's just one thing that I really wanted to testify about today, because it happened this morning. I got it. I can stay, and I'm here in America, and I'm just so grateful.
I'll give you $20,000 for it.
Never. It's taken too long to get it. It's been a long saga. It actually started before I ever even wanted to come, before I knew I'd ever want to even think about living here. And I made a trip I had the opportunity in 2016 to take a trip to Canada for the rally they were having there, which would mean I would get to see my son who lives there. And also there was a cruise to Alaska. So I needed 2 tourist visas, and I went online to see about this late in the day, but we had all been assured it's a snap. It costs this much, and it takes, whatever length of time it does to just punch it all out and get it. So away I went. And when it came to, did I have a drug conviction, I checked yes, and immediately got kicked out of the system on both of those, America and Canada, and that's when it all began. Long story short, after a lot of, I had to get references, I had to have my federal police check, which is clear, because the conviction came from 40-something years ago, a very long time ago. And I had to have, I can't even remember now, but I sent this whopping email to Canada. It was too big. I had to shrink it all down. And eventually, just 6 days before I was supposed to leave, they said, okay, you can come. So that was fine. But America said, you'll have to come down to Sydney to the consulate, and I did, and I had to have an interview, and so the guy asked me all these questions, and I told him, and he asked me questions like, how much was the fine? And I'm like, I don't know, I don't remember, it's been a long time, I just paid the fine, that was all. Everything from that time changed. I came to the Lord a year later, so my whole life turned around. But eventually he said, okay, we're going to give you a 6 months, what was it? Sorry? B2 visa. But you can never live in America because you've had a drug conviction. And I remember thinking at the time, well, so what? I don't care, because, all I wanted was to go on that cruise. I had no clue this was going to impact me later. We never do. We don't think when we're young that our choices are going to come back to smack us in the face, and it did. Everything I went through, both with Canada and America, it was the first time in all those years that I had felt so bad for my past. God had forgiven me, but these people wanted to rehash it all, and it was such a small thing. It was not drug trafficking. It was not hard drugs. It was just one marijuana cigarette. That's all it was. But it started a big mess. Anyway, so I came over. I did not actually get the visa stamped into my passport until it was too late to go to Alaska. So I missed out on that cruise, but it didn't matter because I just changed everything around and did the Rocky Mountains instead. And that was fine. But I also met my future husband. And so about 6 or so months later, I thought, now I want to go live there. And this is going to be problematical. And so we decided we would start the process once we were married, and I was living over here. We got married, and then a few months later, I went back to Australia for a few months to finish sorting out all of my affairs. And then it really became bothersome because I had issues getting out of the country, out of Australia, because I had changed my passport into my married name. Now my visa to get into the States was on my old passport, and the airline I was flying with weren't going to accept that, even though I had both visas with me. So that was a major headache. I had Carlton on the line at the 11th hour. I was due to fly out, and we had to change to another airline quickly and get me on a different flight. So praise the Lord, that worked. But I came via Hawaii. And when I stopped there, being as how the border is actually there, if you stop there, that's when it really became an issue. They wanted to deport me, and they had me in this interview room for ages, and they couldn't and wouldn't specify exactly what I'd done wrong, but they just kept saying, we're going to deport you. It was just horrible. And I was just praying. I didn't know what else to do. I could not communicate with Carlton. I knew he was at the other end waiting for me soon, and I couldn't get there. I couldn't get to a phone. I couldn't do anything. And all I could do was just pray. And I was shaking in my boots, and I was very distressed. It was just awful because I was being treated like a criminal, and they weren't really saying what it was that I'd actually done, but they were going to deport me. And so they took a whole big long statement from me, and then eventually she came in, the lady, and she said, we want you to sign this. And then she walked out of the room, and I thought, no, I'm not going to sign this until I've read the whole thing. So I was reading it, and while I was reading it, she came back in. She said, I've spoken to my superiors. I'm wrong. You can go. I said, where am I going to go now? Because I'd missed my connecting flight to LA. And she said, well, you can go anywhere you like. You can go. You're free. But she said, we'll be watching you. So by the time I actually landed in LA, I was extremely rattled. I spent, I don't know how many weeks after that, looking over my shoulder all the time. I just felt horrible. And I just thought, this. So applying for the rest is just going to be a nightmare. But we started the process, and then we just kept having hiccups. We sent the old forms the first time, and they sent back and said, you've got to do it all again, wrong forms. So we did that. And then they, it so happens, I actually don't have fingerprints anymore. They've sort of worn off. And so I had to do them again, and all these things happened. And then we let them know we were going to move over to here, and they still scheduled the interview for LA. So we flew out there back in August last year. And when we got there, after we waited for ages, the guy said, oh, you can't be here. You should be in Atlanta for this. And we said, well, we let you know. So then he had to go to his superior and eventually said, okay, fine, I'll do the interview. But he was Asian, and I don't remember if he was wearing a mask, but he had a big screen in front of him. So it was quite difficult to understand his questions. And I felt like he never gave me the chance to talk. And the questions all focused on the drug conviction. I thought I had all this information to give him to prove that we had a bona fide marriage, that we weren't married so I could get into the country, because I was thinking I didn't ever want to come to America. I wouldn't want to if it weren't for the fact that I want to be with somebody. But no, the focus was on the drugs, and he just kept asking questions. And there was one question he'd misrepresented me on. And so I just thought, I can't see this working. I just think it's just going to be more headache. And he said, well, you'll get your answer in 90 days. 90 days came and went. And we just kept right on praying. And this morning, Carlton said, I'm sorry, this is such a long story. Carlton said, I'm going to call them, just see what the status is. But first, I'll just go online and have a look. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be funny if he goes online and finds out he doesn't have to call them? And that's exactly what happened. Praise the Lord. We got the information this morning, and it was just so crazy because I thought I'd be running around the house cheering. All I could do was cry because it's over at last. It's just taken so long. And I just praise the Lord because he got us there.